that you're going nowhere. Don't blame me for what you've done, because I know that you are having fun.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast, exposing the real estate secrets your agent doesn't want you to know. Here's your host, Tom Clary.
Don't you just walk away. That's when I'll say.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast. I'm Tom Clary and I'm your host. I'm a real estate agent here in the beautiful state of California, Los Angeles to be exact. I'm here with my lovely, lovely co-host, Ron Bruno. How you doing?
It's always nice to be called lovely. Always nice to be called lovely on this fine Friday afternoon.
You know what? You need to learn to appreciate yourself.
It's true. This is true. I'm much more self-deprecating.
Yeah, he's stunning. People don't, sometimes you don't see through the podcast how stunning this man is across from me.
Oh, stop.
I know.
Good Lord.
Sometimes I just can't resist.
Well, yeah.
How are we doing? So how's life in the Bruno sphere?
Life's busy in the Bruno sphere.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. Well, just got back from a week long.
In Dallas.
I was in Dallas.
Again.
Big D.
Home away from home.
Yeah. So, Karen, my wife, we help each other out, right? So it's all the family business. So technology,
it's all about partnership.
All about partnership.
Yeah.
So Karen was not feeling all that great. So I came in town and helped out, do a little business development and CIO hunting, which was very exciting.
I just got this image of you with like a safari hat.
Yes.
On the back of some,
Yes.
Jeep,
Yes.
with a big elephant rifle in your hand.
Yes, I took down some elephants.
Did you?
Yeah, I talked to the head of AT&T,
Wow.
big companies.
Wow, they talk
Big
to
companies. I know, it's crazy.
Why would they do something so silly?
Why wouldn't they? But no, it's crazy. It's just, technology ball just keeps blowing up and, had an opportunity to attend the CIO of the Year Awards
interesting.
in the Dallas metro area. So that was very exciting. Cheer on the CIOs that are on our executive roster. So that was pretty exciting,
Right.
So we've got to see some winners on that and
Great.
and congratulate them afterwards and, got some new sponsors. So
Good.
it's always exciting.
Oh, awesome.
And, did a little marketing on myself. So I helped out some agents out there. I'm licensed in Texas. So, there's agents and financial advisors and all sorts of people. And
But now let me get this straight. They have real estate agents.
they do in Texas. Yes.
And you actually went and talked to them.
I did.
Wow. So there's not just me.
Nope. Unless you can bring in an X amount, then we can talk about exclusivity.
Oh wow! So we're getting down to brass tacks here, guys. This is a sore subject for both of us. But now there's an actual number.
Oh,
If I brought in a number,
Yes.
you would only talk to me.
I would work for you exclusively.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So is it like $50?
Nope.
$60?
Keep going.
What? Well, I'm starting to feel a little bit abused.
No, don't feel abused.
No?
Don't feel abused. No. You'll be all right.
Yeah. My week, I just sat at home and pined for you. I literally just sat in my living room by pictures of you.
When will Ron come home?
When is Ron? I'm like that German Shepherd that basically sits at the front window.
No. That is just
Ron.
a weird image that I just got in my head. That's so wrong. That's so wrong.
So, do you got any news?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Kind of threw you off there, did I?
Yes. So what we've got here. So this one was from, let's see, I think it was Scotsman's News today. So it says that broker trade groups calls for ban on trigger leads.
Wait a minute, Scotsman's News. I have to stop you for a second. Did you say Scotsman's News?
Yeah, Scotsman's Guide. So Scotsman's Guide is a big lender.
That's just the guy who's got some business.
No,
I'm Scottish. I'm big like a business.
That's not it. No.
Tell me all about my loan.
Yeah, exactly. No, Scotsman's Guide is a monthly publication, and obviously they have news stories all the time. So I got this through my email. And
are there a lot of stories about haggis?
No, none about haggis.
No?
None about haggis. Nope.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Pretty sure. No Guinness, no Irish, none of that.
Nothing. Well, it's not Scotsman. It wouldn't be Irish.
This is true. Nothing about Scotch.
All right.
There's nothing about
Scotch.
Well,
then I don't want to hear it.
So Scotsman's Guide is a publication that's put out for lenders. And this article is talking about trigger leads. And a trigger lead is when a residential application, and specifically when credit is pulled for the purpose of a refi or a purchase, then there are companies that can take that consumer's data and then sell it as a lead.
Yeah, which
right?
consumers always love.
Oh yeah. I mean, and well, especially lenders too. You know, so I'm doing my professional job.
When I heard this story, I could hear you trembling.
Oh, I wasn't trembling. I was
full on seizure.
Angry. Yes. So I mean, it's a pain. I've had, fortunately, once a client decides, all right, we're moving together. It's not like they're like, oh, someone else just said, let's talk.
Yeah.
Right. So fortunately, it doesn't happen to me all that much, but it's such a pain, right?
Yeah.
Because, you're working with the client, you decide, okay, we're going to be, this is essentially what rate you're going to get. We got to run the credit just to make sure.
Right.
So we go down that process and then, here you go, here's your rate. Okay, cool. Let's go lock it in. And then all of a sudden, another bank is hitting them up. And the reason why they're hitting them up is because they received it as a lead.
Well, and this is so kind of insane because when let's put it in the kind of non-real estate world, what this would be like. Mm-hmm. Let's say that, okay, I've got a problem with my car, right? Let's say that I got a battery problem in my car. So I take it to a mechanic, right? And the mechanic, in order to do it, runs a diagnostic on it to make sure that, this is the problem or whatever. But that diagnostic got reported to another mechanic.
Right.
And that other mechanic, all of a sudden, you got a phone call from that other mechanic going, hey, what's that other mechanic charging you? Mm-hmm. And, nobody wants that. I mean, that's not even, doesn't even sound like a fair thing to do.
So what they're doing is it's the credit bureaus, right? So Equifax, which, they got in a little bit of trouble. Just a tad. They're the ones that are selling it.
There's even more this week, wasn't there?
They
came out, there was like 2 million or something more.
Yeah, there was a higher number of people that were affected. But, they say that it's, it promotes, competition, but when you get to the point when you're running credit, that's not really competition.
At some point,
have ads, right? So you can have ads and target people and all that kind of stuff before someone's credit's run. But I think that's a great, that's a great analogy where you're already meeting with that particular,
at some point,
auto mechanic, and then all of a sudden you're getting all these things on your phone saying, I could do better.
Well, and to be perfectly honest, like in real estate wise, realtors, we have that kind of, we don't poach other people's clients.
That's right.
So if they're already starting to deal with that, we ethically can't take their client.
And that does not occur in the lending industry.
For lending, it doesn't. It's like
it does not occur.
No, we can definitely go after it. And by the way, this is very similar to when you're going to put an offer on a house, and they say, "Oh, you have to, but we got to make sure you cross qualify with such and such a lender."
Right.
And yes, there are some reasons why that's a good thing to do, and I'm not saying that's I'm not all against that practice.
Right.
It's when it morphs into, and I can get you a much better rate, and I can do, and then all of a sudden it kind of derails the whole entire thing.
Well, so the cross qualification, that's a good point, right? So the way that I view cross qualifications, first of all, it is a service on behalf of the listing agents that I have a relationship with, right? So Tom has used me for cross qualification. So he has a listing and he's getting all these offers that are coming in.
Right.
And he says, what do you think?
I want to stress test.
Right. You want to stress test.
I want to know that they can go through.
Exactly. So the way that I view it is, number one, I'm providing the service to Tom, right? So if somebody, and typically it's the lender that calls me, right? So Tom puts in the agent remarks saying that buyer must cross-qualify with Ron Bruno. Here's his cell phone and here's his email address, right?
Right.
So then if they're savvy, the loan officer is the one that calls me up and says, okay, I understand that you'd like to cross-qualify. Yeah. What would you like to know? Right. And usually I'm asking for, okay, if it's a conventional loan, I'm asking for loan prospector or desktop underwriter. That just means Fannie or Freddie, right? Or Freddie or Fannie, right? So I'm asking for the automated underwriting system report, right? Because that'll give me kind of the basics. I then may go into, okay, so, I want to know how we qualify the income. So I may ask for the tax returns and a copy of their pay stubs and all these things, right?
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No. And then I'm able to kind of run it through my system and essentially qualify them, right? That's why they call it a cross qualification. So I go through and I'm like, you know what? These guys are good, right? Yeah. And I look at, okay, what lender are you using? And, a lot of lenders are using the same different same investors, right? So in general, I have a pretty good idea that, that loan's going to go through. Now, if it's the if it's the actual client that calls me because their lender's lazy or just isn't savvy enough, that's an automatic, game on. Right.
Yeah.
And what I do in that case is I do the same thing, right? I go through the process, but then I do ask, I'm like, what's your relationship with that particular lender? And they're like, I don't know. He doesn't call me back, whatever. Right. Mm. And at that point, it signifies to me that, you know what, they don't have a strong lender and therefore they don't have the best representation and they want to get this home and they want to get the deal done. So they would be better off working with me.
Yeah. Look, because here's the deal. This is such a case by case thing, because if somebody came to you with this kind of thing and you did that, I wouldn't feel so bad because I know that they were being well taken care of.
Correct.
Right. Mm-hmm. But you can't always count on that. You know what I mean? That person on the other side of that phone is going to be somebody who is as high quality as you are.
Right.
So I would love it in the entire transaction. It's like, look, guys, this is consistent. Right. You don't poach, you don't poach, you don't poach, you don't poach.
Right. Well, another way.
And you wonder, but hold on a second. Yeah. Because you wonder why we get this really bad kind of, reputation.
Right.
And it's so deserved in so many ways. From the beginning to the end of this process. Mm-hmm. Everybody's trying to poach each other, or there's trying to. I heard something today I went to this networking meeting thing today, right? And I heard this story where somebody was saying that somebody in their office makes a lot of money, basically. And one of the things that they do is that if somebody who's a buyer wants to see more than 25 properties, he just hands them off to somebody else and just takes a cut. So basically, he's like, I quit after 25.
Okay.
25 appointments or whatever. He's like, I quit, but I'll take a piece of you. I'm going to hand you to somebody else.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're hearing about these things and it's like...
And they don't tell them that up front.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Well, you would never go with them if you...
Right.
So I just think that anything that's sort of... Even if there's nothing wrong with it, like technically wrong with it, smacks of like not being upfront or smacks of... not playing, quote unquote, playing fair.
Personally, the way that I get around that is I do what's known as, I call it kind of a proactive cross qualification. So when, Tom's representing a buyer and I'm the lender, I will call the listing agent. And I will tell them how amazing the client is.
Right.
I will tell them specifics, right? Not just be like, yeah, dude, they're awesome. But right? I will say, I will talk about the, what the highlights of the file are, right? They have a high FICO, it's 780. Their debt to income ratio is pretty low. It's 25. We already have the automated underwriting system report. This is we're doing this loan in house. It's, we're direct lenders. I saw on the contract that you want 17 days in the appraisal contingency, 21. We'll get it done as soon as possible. Here's my information. You have any other questions? Certainly give me a call. That makes a huge difference.
Sure it does. But there's also an inordinate amount of pressure sometimes being put on the agents to use the in-house, quote unquote, in-house lender. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So almost every single, by the way, I've been seeing a lot of this with buyers when I go to see a listing, and almost every single one has this, where it's like, oh, it just so happens to be the in-house lender. Because I think that they frown upon you using somebody who isn't somebody who is sanctioned by, Coldwell Banker or KW or, you know what I mean? So
you're allowed to use whoever you want.
You are 100% allowed to use whoever you want.
Even when it comes to builders, they can't tell you have to use a certain lender.
That was another thing, was when a builder came into another networking meeting and she got hammered because, basically a lender was there and was like, no, you guys, as pretty much the standard of the business, kind of influence people like, oh, no, you don't have to use us, but you're not going to get this add-on. You're not going to get this, the new counters, the new granite. But because we can do that because we can fudge the numbers when it's our lender or whatever. And it's like, well, then you're telling them that they have to use your lender.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah, fudge the numbers is always something you want to hear.
Yeah, you don't want to hear that about.
Especially with our guest who's an attorney.
Yeah,
today, right?
an attorney and a CPA. You know,
Exactly.
That's the last thing you want to tell our guests. Well, by the way, the perfect segue, Ron.
Wow,
did you plan that?
Well,
Holy cow, you set that up, and I'm going to just slam the heck out of that. So our guest today comes from a really fascinating part of the real estate world. Attorney and CPA Ani Galyan has a specialty in taxation, but specifically in regards to either folks from the United States who want to buy property overseas or foreign entities buying property here in the United States. She's got a lot of amazing insights about what can be a really complicated topic. She's been an attorney for a while, but she just recently opened her own office. Go Ani, awesome. Ani Galyan, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks
I'm excited
for coming.
to be here.
That's awesome. So here's how we start every time we're with someone who is their first time here. We ask them the exact same question every single time. Where the hell have you been, and how the hell did you get here?
Well, I've been around practicing for about 10 years. In the meantime, I managed to squeeze in law school as a CPA.
It was just a little bit of a thing.
Yes.
So what? Let's stop here for. I'm gonna hate to stop you this early in this whole thing, but like, what was it like? Being a CPA just wasn't enough. We needed, take it to the next level. You must make your parents incredibly proud. Like, oh, she's an accountant and an attorney, right?
I think they love bragging about me around town, but it's good for business.
Absolutely.
So I was a CPA, and I just got bored with the redundancy of tax returns in and out, and
I was see that
working with attorneys, and I was like, this is exciting. I can do this.
Yeah.
So I decided to go to law school, and here I am.
That's awesome. That's great. So, so how did you first kind of come into taxation law, though? I mean, like well, I guess because of the CPA thing, it kind of naturally led. I guess that's kind of answers itself.
Yeah.
Right?
So I specifically went to law school to become a tax attorney.
Okay, that makes sense.
I originally started as a state and local tax
really?
practitioner with the State Board of Equalization, but somehow got morphed into international tax matters. So for the past 5 years, I've been working in international tax world,
okay,
helping U.S. taxpayers come into compliance with their taxing reporting and the information reporting. But I've also helped foreigners who are coming here through the EB-5 visas and investing in U.S. real estate, and they just don't understand the pitfalls and all the complications that our system has.
Yeah.
So,
I would imagine there's a couple of those.
Yeah, it's
There's
surprising.
a couple of pitfalls.
It's surprising. People come and they start living here, and then they don't realize what they've done to themselves when it comes to exposing themselves to U.S. taxation.
Yeah.
And then when they find out, it's a little too late because they've already set up life here, and they have their family and their real estate and their investments. So it's then scrambling to get them into compliance and move forward to stay in compliance.
Got it. Now we'll get to the EB-5, later, but let's just start kind of by chatting about. Let's say that I'm an investor here in the United States, and I'm interested in buying something in France or some sort of other country. What do I have to? Is there anything extra I got to think about in terms of taxation?
Oh, there's a lot to think about in terms of taxation. First, you want to consider what your status is in the United States. So if you're a United States citizen or a green card holder, then you're just exposed to U.S. taxation on all levels. There's some tax treaty benefits you can get, but it's very limited, especially if you're a U.S. citizen.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
So the United States has several tax treaties with some of the biggest countries in the world, and under the treaties, you get some reduced withholding rates. You get treatment of income is different for each tax treaty, depending on what type of investment you're in, what type of income you're generating, because we want to avoid double taxation.
Right.
So if, for example, you're in France and France is taking money right off the bat on the rental income, the tax is withheld right at the source, and then you come to the United States and you report the same income, now you're being double
taxed. Yeah.
So the tax treaty comes in to kind of help that situation.
Got it. So is there any kind of difference between, like, if I'm, let's just say that whether I've gone in all cash and I buy whatever it is that I'm buying, investing in wherever country, to having some sort of mortgage or some sort of loan with it? Is there any kind of difference between the two?
There's not much of a difference on how you purchase the property, but let's say you went in all cash, right? And you had to open a bank account offshore to move the cash to the foreign jurisdiction.
Okay.
and then to use that money to purchase the property. What you've done to yourself is now exposed yourself to foreign bank account reporting requirements and this thing called FATCA.
Fat guy?
FATCA.
Fat guy?
Stands for
FATCA.
Foreign...
Facta.
FACTA. Sorry.
F-A-T.
I thought you were calling me a fat guy. And, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. FATCA, which came in around 2011 and now is in full force in 2014. So that's the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. It's a little...
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So we call it FATCA. In short, it's the Form 8938 for U.S. taxpayers. So what Form 8938 requires to be attached to your income tax return, and it's listing all your foreign assets. So it includes your foreign bank accounts. Surprisingly, does not include your foreign real estate.
Oh, really?
Yet. There's some talk that that's going to be amended, so foreign real estate will be included as a foreign asset. But on the flip side, let's say you want to put your foreign real estate in an entity, foreign corporation, foreign trust, one of these protections, so it's not in your individual name.
Got it.
Now, what you've done to yourself is exposed yourself to more...
Again, I'm exposing myself all the way.
all the time.
A lot.
Better be careful.
I know. There's all sorts of rules about that. I know that much. I've been told. Yeah, don't expose yourself. But what are you saying? Okay.
So now you have the FATCA reporting, you have the FBAR reporting, you have this little thing called a controlled foreign corporation reporting. You may have a trust reporting on a Form 3520, 3520A. And it's very important to keep these things in mind because the penalties for each information return is $10,000.
Oh my goodness.
Starting.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and it's for each year. If you have 2 foreign bank accounts, for example, it's per account.
Wow.
So let's say you open one account, you have a foreign corporation, then you decide to do some trust work. Now you've exposed yourself to at least $30,000 of penalties. Wow. And you wouldn't have known to report any of this. And what's surprising is a lot of times when I ask clients why they didn't tell their accountant, why they didn't report, their response is, well, it's not in the United States. I didn't think it was required to be reported.
Yes, it was.
So.
Wow. Interesting. Now, if it's, can you be gifted stuff from like a property from one person
Here you
to another?
go, exposing yourself again.
This fat guy exposing himself. He's got to stop.
So let's say you get a gift from your parents who are overseas. You're an immigrant and your parents are deciding to do some trust planning or some estate planning in their jurisdiction. And they say, hey, we're going to give you this property or we're going to give you 20% of this property.
Okay.
Well, now you have to report a foreign gift or a foreign inheritance.
Oh.
And that reporting is anytime you cross 100,000 in 1 year. So you can get some from your mom, some from your dad. Maybe your cousin decided to give you some money.
So there is a limit on it. It's not like...
the reporting starts at 100,000.
Starts at 100,000.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's also, that's the other trick. The reporting on this is not automatically triggered. And the reporting on the different forms, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a foreign bank account.
Okay.
And the foreign bank account is a foreign asset for the FATCA form.
Okay.
So the foreign bank account starts reporting at $10,000.
Oh.
Flip over to the FATCA form, you don't have to start reporting until $50,000. So there's all these thresholds you need to keep in mind. So you need a good CPA.
You need somebody who can remember all these numbers.
Yes, you need someone who has some experience in this area because, like I mentioned, the penalties are severe.
Yeah.
And the government, with the Swiss program, has a lot of information. Under FATCA, the foreign banks are turning over information to U.S. authorities. So even if you think they're never going to find out, guess what? When you go to open a bank account, and if you're lucky, they'll open a bank account for a U.S. citizen. They'll take down all your information, copy of your passport, make you sign a form, and then all of the information that's maintained under your name will be turned over to the U.S. authorities.
Wow.
So one day, IRS may come knocking saying, hey, remember that bank account you opened to buy that property? We know about it. And you didn't report, and here's the penalty.
Got it. So what other, like when, let's say we're starting the process of, I'm just starting, when would we be getting you involved? At what stage would be the best time to give you a call? Would it be like when you're like, you probably, it's about time to declare, or do you think it's like way early, like when you're first starting to look, or what do you?
I would definitely recommend you start with an attorney, or at least with your CPA, the conversation when you want to go offshore.
Yeah.
And nowadays, most CPAs should be aware of the offshore reporting. And if they're not, you probably should get
find
it.
another attorney.
Yes,
Yeah.
or a CPA, because it's out there. After the Swiss program, it is out there. Everybody should know about these reporting forms, especially if you're practicing in the area.
Right. Right.
So, but surprisingly, most people don't come asking for advice until it's too late.
Right. Now, is there kind of like I don't want to say, are there different countries that have different kind of exposures, or different, like a place where you would like, you know what, you probably want to, do you care about the taxes on the other countries, or is it only about here that you're kind of like focused on?
I focus on United States taxes.
Right.
I cannot give advice regarding other countries because
Right.
it would be
Right.
wrong on my part
Sure.
to mislead someone. But we do take into a consideration, if you're doing some tax planning with your CPA, you want to take into consideration the fact that you're in a high taxing jurisdiction,
Right.
offshore somewhere.
Right.
You want to look at the tax treaty and see if you can take any benefits. So it definitely helps if you're in the planning phases. But once you go offshore and you're investing, all of that cannot be changed, because now you've purchased the property, and it's kind of too late when you go to your CPA on April 15 and go, hey, I already did this, help
Right.
me save taxes. And
Yeah.
there's not much they can do at
Yeah.
that point.
Is there any kind of like, does the United States government consider any countries different than other countries? Like, do they have any kind of different? Is it the same kind of unanimous? Like, this is the tax for if you're going to move to that country, buy a property in that country, or buy a property in that country, or is it like, well, we have a little special thing with Ecuador that is there anything like that?
There are some countries that are on this banned list or OFAC list, so
Okay.
you want to be careful you're not going.
So it's more
to-
about not being able to do anything, kind of. There.
Exactly. You
Got it.
cannot do any transaction with these countries. But, there are countries that would be better for taxpayers because they have the tax treaty, they have favorable terms with the United States versus some other countries. But your reporting is any country. You're outside of the borders of the United States, you have reporting obligations.
Got it. Now, would there be any kind of advantage to, let's say so even though I'm here in the United States, creating some sort of foreign company or something like that over there, like in France or Ecuador or whatever, that then buys the property? Like, is there any kind of advantage to that?
There may be some advantage in the foreign jurisdiction due to liability. So in the United States, sometimes you do want to put your property in a corporation or an LLC because it provides limited liability
Right.
if something, God forbid, happens on that property.
Right.
So you would have to check with that jurisdiction. In some jurisdictions, you may be required to be putting your
Interesting.
your real estate in a holding company
That's
So-
there in that country.
Exactly. So if you're maybe rental or commercial, you have to check the laws of that jurisdiction. But if you're in an entity, I mentioned that controlled foreign corporation reporting.
Yeah.
It's Form 5471, and this is a big form. And it's as if you're doing another tax return within your return.
Oh, wow.
And there's reporting requirements that are triggered whether you're 50% owner, 10% owner, you're an officer of the corporation. So this form, you really do need a CPA who understands and can assist you in filing this form.
Yeah, it just seems like it's such a kind of like serpentine, kind of labyrinthine, situation where if you don't have someone who's looking at all bases, you could really end up hurting yourself.
Yes, exactly. We had a client who invested in actually, I believe, Ecuador or Panama in a farm, and they didn't realize the implications they had here in the United States. So they packed their bags, they moved to that country and started operations. It was a farming operation.
Okay.
Purchased the land, set up shop, and they completely forgot about the United States with the fact that they have a U.S. passport. They said, I'm offshore. Nobody's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they were coming back to the United States, sure enough, somebody knew, and they were alerted to the fact that they need to file all the forms.
Oh, wow.
And surprising, one thing to keep in mind, starting sometime late last year, the border security is starting to check passports. So the IRS has produced a list of individuals who owe
really?
delinquency. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes. So now there's a list of individuals that Homeland Security is tracking
I'll be darned.
as they come into the country.
Oh, you thought you could just go off to the Bahamas or whatever, and to come back and be just like, oh, you're just walking across the border.
Yes.
It's like, oh, by the way, tap, tap, tap. Uncle Sam
Exactly.
has to talk to you.
Exactly.
Interesting.
The benefits of having that blue passport.
Well, yeah, right. Exactly. Wow. So are you, here's a question. Is there any difference if, we said there was a foreign entity, but what if the money's already there in like a bank or something does that make a difference or?
No, it doesn't make a difference. Once you form the corporation or the entity and start operating through that entity, it triggers your reporting requirement here in the United States.
Got it.
Now, if the money is offshore ahead of time, then you have this FBAR reporting that I mentioned, the foreign bank account reporting.
Oh.
And that is actually not an IRS form. That's a Bank Secrecy Act form.
Now, go into that. What is that?
So the Bank Secrecy Act is covers the reporting. So I'm sure in the financial institutions you may have heard of, there's some reporting obligations.
Sure.
There's the foreign bank account reporting that's under there. There's Form 8300, which is when you do transactions in cash. There's a host of reporting requirements under
and
there.
basically, it's the government, the U.S. government is trying to make sure that there's not like some sort of money laundering or some sort of something coming through, right?
Exactly.
Got it.
These statutes were enacted particularly to discover financial crimes, terrorism, money laundering type of issues. FinCEN, which is actually let me read this because it's a mouthful. Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which is FinCEN.
I don't think there's going to be like an NCIS for the financial crime. It doesn't have cool letters.
No, the ABC, the alphabet.
Yeah, right. Alphabet soup.
Yes. So FinCEN is actually in charge of collecting this information and administering, doing investigations. And they do order those geographic targeting orders we talked about earlier.
Yeah, we were chatting about this earlier today, that there was something you wanted to make sure that you covered today, and I think it is something that's very fascinating. That there's actual geographic targeting, like that FinCEN says, okay, for this area of Texas, if you buy a property for X amount of dollars and it's cash and blah, 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 it has to be reported by the title company.
That's correct.
So the title company has to take that upon themselves to kind of say,
correct.
To call it out, raise a flag and say, okay, we've passed the threshold. But I thought it was fascinating that there was different thresholds for different areas. Like New York was like 2 million or something like that.
Yeah, so Texas is 500,000. I guess property was not expensive
when they made that rule.
Sorry, still not all that expensive.
Sorry, Ron. So you sure you want to like spend all that time in Dallas? I'm just saying.
I've got my California license, so I get the best of both worlds. More people can qualify in Texas.
Man, you're going to be just loaded.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was $1 million in Florida, Miami-Dade County, or Palm Beach. $1.5 million in Brooklyn, Bronx, New York City. And in California, so it's San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara. It's $2 million.
Right.
And then the borough of Manhattan is $3 million. And Hawaii is $3 million.
Where do you think they came up with these thresholds?
I believe they looked at the luxury, probably the average.
They kind of bet that those are the folks who are going to be probably.
And if you look at the areas that are being targeted, this is hotspots for investments, foreign investments, or investments, but cash buys.
Right.
So if you know anything about FinCEN, what they do is they collect the financial information to investigate financial crimes.
Right.
And then that information is passed on to IRS criminal investigation, or one of the agencies who receives this information.
Right.
And they're in charge of starting to investigate and look at who's money laundering, who's not reporting the income.
Right.
And then if it's not to the threshold of criminal investigation, they refer it to civil examination.
Got it.
So it trickles down. What we expect in geographic targeting orders is enforcement down the road.
Right.
Because of the information collected.
Actually, it's kind of interesting because I want to make a little bit of a switch here because and go into chatting about foreign entities coming, because we might as well, while we're kind of chatting about this, kind of these are the red flags that kind of happen when that happens, right? There was something, Ron, that you had basically heard about that was basically, it was like a news story about what countries were the highest investment in different areas, right? Wasn't it?
Right. So, the article, it was from Mansion Global, and what they were saying is that foreign investment in the U.S. continues to rise. And, historically, it's been, or at least, recent historically, it's been China. Right. So,
right.
And obviously in Los Angeles,
big time investor.
in the place where Karen and I live in the San Gabriel Valley, you're talking about, lots of Asian investors.
Yeah.
Right. So what they were saying is that in the U.S., it kind of depends on where these particular cities are, where they're getting the foreign investment. So they were saying that in Los Angeles, it's coming from, China, but it's also coming from Japan. It's coming from Vietnam and Indonesia. And then you have markets like Miami, where there's hardly any Asian investment. It's primarily Latin America, right? So you're talking about Central America, South America. That's where a lot of the money's coming from. And then you have places in where New York, where you're closer to, just a plane ride away from Europe. So you have a lot of Russian buyers. You have a lot of Eastern and Western Europeans that are buying in those particular places.
I think it's fascinating that there's still such a desire. I mean, with the prices going up and inventory being low, that there would still be that kind of investment coming over.
Yeah,
I think it's a good sign for just regular buyers here that are U.S. citizens.
Well, I mean, it's and it's also a good segue too, right? So you have people that are in these particular countries, and U.S. even in Los Angeles, U.S. real estate is cheap compared to where they're coming from. Right. Whether it's the exchange rate, whether it is that particular like let's look at Hong Kong, right? I mean, Hong Kong just exploded in the past 20 years,
right.
and it's relatively expensive compared. On top of that, you also have people that are trying to assimilate into the U.S. So, they were able to, make their money in their home country, and, now they want to have a different life. So they're now buying in the U.S.
Well, and it's kind of, I think, a really good segue for the EB5 conversation that we know we wanted to talk about, which is that basically there's a program that was started by the United States to get people to invest here in America. And so it's like over a certain amount, if they were going to come in and invest, how much was it? $1 million?
It's $1 million if you're in specific areas, and $2 million if you're just in the general areas.
Got it.
And the way the maps are drawn is kind of funny. I was at a seminar once, and somebody pulled up the map for New York, and it was zigzagging through certain parts of New York.
Little gerrymandering or something like that?
Yeah, they want to gentrify certain parts of the city, so they target this as the $1 million areas.
So that there would be an increased amount. So basically, that for a reduced amount in those areas, you could get a green card, or is it a...
Yes. So the EB5 visa was started in 1990, but it really took off later on as U.S. became the tax haven, as the Swiss banks started falling apart or falling away. The U.S. is currently now the tax haven for the rest of the world, surprisingly.
Wow.
And most people...
Who would have saw that coming? I mean, seriously.
I mean, you go to foreign jurisdictions, Asia and Russia, and they think this is a secure place to keep your money.
All right. Yeah.
And foreigners like to see actual investments. They want to put their money in something.
They want to, do you mean by that like they literally want to knock on a door?
Exactly.
Like a solid, there's something that's sitting there.
They want physical assets. I mean, if you look at, China and Russia, they're communist countries.
Yeah.
So if you own property in China or in Russia, or you have assets in those locations, a bank account, technically the government could just take it.
Yeah, right.
If they wanted to.
Right.
There's nothing stopping them.
Right.
So they want to get that money out so that they're diversified and that they have the protection. So the U.S. has protections where they own them. Now you have to do it the right way or it can be taken away, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, but there's also eminent domain here too. I mean, that they could potentially take it here. I mean, I'm correct? Am I...
Well, I mean, there are some legal requirements. You can forfeit out.
But the government can come and take something if they really want to build a freeway or something like that, correct?
Yes, they will have to pay you for it.
Well, Oh, true. Oh, so you're saying take it without paying?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
take it.
They just seize the property as if you never...
Okay, that's a little bit different. I wouldn't want to invest in that. Oh, yeah, just go ahead and take that, Vlad. Yeah. I wasn't doing anything with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And in LA, what we saw is a lot of building up of like LA Live or hotels.
Right.
Because especially Asian investors.
Oh, so that you think that was through that program?
Oh, yeah. The
Oh,
EB5
interesting.
visa pretty much built LA as to the state it is now, from
Right.
my understanding. And the Asian investors want to they want to recognize a name. So that's why we saw a lot of hotels, a lot of big centers being built.
Right.
And that was what was being marketed out in Asia. Now,
Got
there's
it.
large funds that are put together. There's investor groups. So it's not just you and I getting together saying, hey, we want to be in this program. There's actually, there was some investigation of individuals in Asia who were taking money under false pretenses that you're going to get EB5 and
Oh, really?
schemes, like this pump and dump type of things going on
wow.
over there as well. So
Wow. So basically, to simplify it, if let's say I was Chinese and I had $1 million, I could come over. Is it only commercial or was it residential as well?
there was requirements. So the EB5 was created to get some economic movement in the United States to create jobs.
It was supposed to stimulate these areas, basically.
Yes. So you're supposed to create certain number of jobs per participant.
And there were jobs. That's right. There was
Yes.
jobs that needed to be part of it as well.
It's U.S. workers through their investment capital into the U.S. economy.
Got it.
That's what they're supposed to do.
And in return, you'd get citizenship, or is
You
it
get
national?
a green card.
You get a green
You get a permanent residency card. And
Got
then
it.
if you know a little bit about immigration, after you've been a permanent resident for a certain number of times, you can petition to become a U.S. citizen.
Got it.
So
Got it.
it's a pathway to citizenship. It's from the foreign countries, it's a good way to get your children to go to school here.
Right.
So it was a very attractive opportunity.
Yeah.
I remember reading an article about where nobody was applying to EB5 visas when it first came out.
Oh, really?
And now they're tapped out.
I can believe
Yes.
that. Yeah.
So there are people in line who are waiting to get EB5s.
Wow.
So-
Interesting. So it's significant still right now.
Yes. So let's say you come to the United States and you were a foreign individual and now you have a green card and now you don't realize that you have all these reporting requirements.
Well, that was about to ask is like, how is that? Is it any different from someone who's just a foreign entity that wants to buy here, or do they get
Yes.
special treatment or anything?
No, once you become a green card holder, you become a U.S. person.
So it's basically the same.
So
exactly.
everything we talked about before, the difference is when you come from a foreign jurisdiction, you have a different concept of taxes. Territorial taxes, which is very popular offshore, it's when you pay tax for whatever is situated in that jurisdiction.
Right.
In the United States, we're a worldwide system. So we tax on a worldwide basis.
Okay.
And so once you become a U.S. person, you know that gift your mom gave you from China?
Yeah.
Now that's a reportable gift because it's from a foreign person.
Oh.
And so that mindset, to trigger that difference in mindset, is a hard one for some individuals to grasp.
And I hope it's okay to bring this up, but didn't you, when we had a little lunch before we came here, you had told a story about someone that you knew that like got a loan from some sort of country.
Yeah, so you can
Tell that story for that, because
Okay.
I think it's a great story.
So an individual I know called me up and said, my parents were visited from the IRS
Oops.
and criminal investigation,
Oh.
and they want to have an interview. So innocent bystanders get caught up in this story sometimes, where FinCEN is conducting a criminal investigation or investigation into terrorism, money laundering.
Right.
And for example, if you want to get your money out of China, you got to go through sources that you may not want to disclose to others.
Right.
Or from Iran or the Middle East.
Well, because in China, they're very limited. They're really,
Sanctions.
there's sanctions on taking money out of
Yes.
China. So, yeah.
So a system called Hawala, which is the informal transfer money system, you use this system to get your money out of the foreign jurisdiction, which is common. But the United States may be conducting their own investigation, and you may get caught up because your money was commingled with money that came out of that country. And this is exactly what happened in this case.
Maybe had some sort of nefarious,
Yes.
kind of not so great.
And so individuals have to forfeit their money.
Wow.
And this is not an issue for the Chinese community, but the Chinese community gets caught up in, or the Asian community gets caught up in getting money out of China through various sources, through an entity in Hong Kong, through gifting, through shares in corporations. But now they're part of this EB-5 U.S. person, and then the IRS comes knocking. And this is a large concern in San Gabriel, where I have a few CPA friends who were voicing their concerns because the IRS was being so insensitive to the situation.
Right. Wow. So so if there was money let's say the money was coming out of China and somehow it gets commingled, meaning that it gets mixed in with somebody who's doing some sort of money laundering or something like that, and you're just sending the money out of China to get to your aunt or something here or whatever it is, and all of a sudden, knock, 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 hey, by the way, we have to confiscate this money because it was part of this whole thing.
It's under investigation, and they can't separate the funds. So
separate, as in put it in their own pockets. Yeah.
And so there are situations, having done this work for some time, where you hear stories and you really feel bad for the individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because not only are they facing being interviewed and this pressure of dealing with the FBI or the IRS.
Oh my God, yeah.
They also have to come up with legal fees.
Oh, jeez. I needed money. Now I'm spending money.
Yes.
Yeah. Ron, you got something?
Yeah, so I was just curious. So, if you have somebody that is from China and they're trying to buy a house, right? So is there a limit to the amount that they can actually receive? And then how long does it take to get the money out of China into the U.S.?
There's no limit on the United States part on how much money you can receive that I'm aware of. There's limits on how much money you can take out of China legally under your own name.
Right.
And so they do have programs over there through Hong Kong where they do exit money through various ways. And those exit of money or those transfer of funds run foul to the China currency controls, but they also create problems here in the United States because they'll do something like create a corporation and gift you the shares of the corporation. And guess what happened? You just now are owner of a foreign corporation.
Right.
And you trigger that reporting requirement.
Lucky me.
Exactly.
Wow.
So sometimes you become subject to reporting when that was not your intention or that's not what you wanted to do.
So if you're living in the U.S. and let's say you're a U.S. citizen, right? And your parents happen to be, they're from China, right? And they're trying to send you money for a gift. So is there a limit to how much they can actually give for that gift, or is there any time frame? So if Tom's representing a buyer and they're like, oh yeah, mom and dad are going to give me a gift, and they're from China, does Tom need to now have a 60-day escrow, and do we have to
That's
be
a good
concerned?
question. I mean, in terms of that, first of all, I think that there's going to be the amount that can come in is really on China's side.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but then in terms of the governmental kind of shenanigans that have to happen on it coming in, does that limit
Well, you want to let your buyers know if you're getting money from overseas, they should talk to their CPA and make sure that these appropriate forms are being filed, particularly Form 3520, which reports foreign gifts. Now, there's no tax associated with the foreign gift, but there's a reporting requirement. And I believe, and don't quote me on this, I think the penalty starts at 25% of the gift if you do not report it.
Ooh. Yeah. Wow. So it's a $100,000 gift. It's $25,000 penalty. Wow. That's a lot.
I know for certain communities, privacy is a big issue. Mm-hmm. So the good thing about the reporting to the IRS on that form is you don't have to disclose who gave you the gift. There's no names associated with it. Oh. I know that when sometimes there's investments and you tell them you should put it in your individual name, that may be easy to do in the United States, but they're concerned about what's public information as to what type of assets they own.
Right.
So they like to engage in putting it into an LLC or have a U.S. blocker, maybe a BVI in between.
BVI is?
British Virgin Island.
Oh, got it.
So they'll have and these are complicated structures. Well, they'll do the British Virgin Islands that owns the U.S. corporation, that owns the LLC, that owns the property.
It's like one of those Russian dolls. That's
exactly.
But inside of inside.
It's complicated, but for certain investors or group of investors, particularly when they're investing in commercial property, this is the safest way for them, for their jurisdiction where they're coming from. It's not necessarily for U.S. purposes. While it does expose them to U.S. reporting obligations, it's really focused on where they're coming from and what they're trying to protect.
Right. I've seen it where, you have someone who the parents are giving a gift, but they have a international bank, right? An internationally recognized bank where they have the free flow of money versus, coming from a bank that is not international, right? So, if it's a China, only bank, right? Then, that might be a little bit harder to get out. But if it's international.
One of the things I always recommend my clients if they're getting money from offshore is go to the bank, let the manager at the bank know I'm expecting a wire
That's
from
really good advice.
This particular bank, because you don't want the bank to stop the transaction
Right.
or file a CTR or divorce suspicious activity report because the money's coming from a jurisdiction
Right.
that may not be favorable.
Would throw up a red flag of some
Yeah,
sort.
exactly.
Got it. So let's, in terms of the someone, okay, we've covered an American buying overseas. Now let's talk about someone who's overseas or is, let's just say, just not a resident here or a doesn't have a green card or whatever. What about them buying here? What are their kind of obligations to report and that kind of stuff?
The simplest one is you're buying a personal residence. You're not going to rent it out and you're putting it in your personal name. And being you guys are real estate professionals, you would know which forms need to be appropriately filed to get a foreign individual as the owner. So on the tax side of things, there's really nothing to report.
Okay.
But let's say you're buying a property in your individual name and you're going to rent it out.
Got it.
And let's say you're going to give that rental property to a management company to manage.
Okay.
So
Which happens very often.
Very often. That actually puts the management companies at risk as well.
Oh, really? In what way?
You're required to withhold 30% flat, 30% withholding on the gross income that you receive.
Off the gross.
Off the gross. So let's say that you buy a property and you rent it to Ron, and Ron's paying the property taxes, is paying for the
Now,
maintenance.
that's if I am not me, but let's say
yes.
like I'm from France and I
Yes.
I have Ron be my property
Yep.
manager.
With that scarf, you could be from.
I could be. I'm wearing a scarf. Guys, listen. Before we go any further about the scarf thing, okay? I'm wearing a scarf, everybody. I wear a scarf because I'm bald. I am a bald guy, and it takes me all the heat
cold out
goes
there.
straight out of my head, and it's raining today. I have gotten so much crap over this damn scarf. Everybody, get over the scarf.
At least it's below 60 degrees.
Now I'm just going to take my baguette and cheese and go.
I went to, I don't know, it was like a private club something, and Donald Sutherland, it was 72 degrees, and he was wearing it on the beach. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's a movie star, so he could get away with the
Where's
scarf.
my beret?
Right.
I'm just going to go and leave. I'm sorry. So you were saying,
So,
I'm sorry.
What I was saying is that let's say you have a client who's
Yeah.
from France and says,
Yeah.
hey, I want to buy a property here.
And Ron's going to be the property manager.
And you're going to be the property manager. And you're collecting rent, and the tenant's going to pay the property taxes, and you get the statements, and you send them off to your client in France, and you don't withhold anything. So they're getting this rent. You know they're not U.S. persons, and you did not get this form, which I want to mention because this is a very important form. It's a W-8 W-8ECI.
What?
The IRS loves forms.
By the way, you know what? This is not unusual with CPAs, by the way. I mean, all of the different WA3, 4, 401, it's obvious why you guys have to, there's so many.
Yeah, and I love when people ask me things and they expect me to know off the top of my head.
Right.
And I'm like, it's W something.
Yeah, it's probably got a W in front of it.
Yes.
And some numbers.
So this form, you collect information on the foreign individual to be able to withhold the correct amount. And the individual can make an election on how they want this to be treated in some circumstances, whether they want this to be treated as a trade or business for United States, or they just want straight withholding. So if you're a property manager, Ron, and you don't get this form and you don't withhold the tax, guess what? Now you're going to be liable for that tax.
Oh, no.
The property manager
The
is liable.
property manager becomes
Oh,
liable
boy.
for the tax. Now, this is a big...
Ron.
I'm calling Ani.
And that's when you need to consider doing some kind of a voluntary basis disclosure, especially if you're managing large number of these properties for foreign nationals.
Got
Now,
it.
this is such a big issue. The IRS has released a statement about it, which you can find on their website if you Google foreign persons receiving rental income from U.S. real property.
Okay.
And it's very important that they withhold at that level and do the appropriate withholding, because it's not just the rent you received, but it's the gross rent. So the property taxes that were paid has to be now added onto that gross rent
Got
to
it.
withhold.
Ron, you got something?
Yeah, I think this is a good time to talk about from a financing perspective, right? So if you're foreign national, meaning that you are a citizen of another country, you have not started, you don't have a work visa, you haven't started the process of getting a green card, you're obviously not a U.S. citizen, you are purely foreign national, you are not from here, you are buying a property. A lot of people, I think a common misconception is that you have to pay all cash. Right. But there are financing options out there. Right.
Yeah.
So, and the way that we look at that is, first of all, it's typically our broker channel. Right. So there's, traditional lenders. It's not something that they just offer everybody. So, you have to kind of go outside. They're usually ARM loans. Right. So adjustable rate mortgages. And the way that we calculate it, I've done a few foreign national loans where, what we're doing is we're looking at the income in their particular market, right? So if they're from the UK, then I'm looking at a UK tax return, right? And if it's from a country, say China, where they don't really file tax returns, it's a letter from their CPA,
Well,
right?
have you tried to look at a UK return?
I have.
They have a funky year. I think
Do
they
they?
do like April 15 to April 15
Yes.
or something.
Yes,
okay.
yes. So they have calendar years versus, or I guess fiscal years
Fiscal,
versus
yeah.
calendar years, and I had to calculate it, right? So I had to change it from pounds to to U.S. dollars. So do that conversion. Fortunately, it's in English. I've had a return where
It does help.
It was Mexico. I don't speak Spanish, so I actually had to send it to a translator and had to, the client paid for it, right? They had to, but we had to get it translated, right? On top of changing all of the, the currency conversion. But we look at, they have to have a certain number of trade lines. They have to have international banks. We have to look at whatever the income sources are, but that's how they calculate it, right? And they do the way they do the credit report is it's an international credit report. So they actually have a call with somebody. We set it up over the phone, and they then talk about the trade lines, and then they come back to us and say, here you go. It checks that box for the foreign national, but. I mean, you're looking probably anywhere between, 50, basically like half down, right?
Okay.
So the LTV, the loan to value is about 50%.
So it's not all cash, but it is.
It's not all cash. Oh yeah, I mean, you can't. They don't have the 1% down program
Yeah,
for
right.
foreign
Yeah,
nationals,
right. Yeah.
right? I mean, it's pretty easy not to, pay that mortgage and never to visit that property and just skip town.
And
Right.
all of this takes time to get foreign documents translated. So going back
Yeah.
to the escrow, you need a longer escrow probably.
It's probably a good
Oh,
idea,
yeah.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, I mean, I had a refi one time where it was a husband and wife. They were getting divorced, and their existing bank, it was I think it was Bank of the West or one of those One West Bank. So they didn't offer foreign national. So they were they had a duplex in Venice that was kicking off about $10,000 of monthly income. I mean, just right near the beach. And as part of the divorce decree, the husband who was living in the UK, who was a foreign national, did not have any interests in the U.S. He had to actually have the property in his name only, and that included the loan. So we went ahead and went down this process, and it was funny because the first time that we ran the we did the appraisal, it came in low, right? So we had to look at the comps that were coming up, and it just so happened that there was it was in escrow.
Something that was going to have.
Yeah, there was something
bring
in
it up a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So we were able to align that, but because of the LTV issue, he didn't have 50%. So we actually put money in.
Oh wow!
Right, but getting that better comp, I don't know. I think we saved him $130,000.
So that grateful for that.
Yeah, he was pretty happy about that. So
Wow.
he was happy to pay the extra $800 to do the second appraisal
I can imagine.
on that particular piece. But yeah, we used all of his foreign sources of income, did the international credit report and all that, and he got it in his name, right? And he did the ARM and. That was a couple years ago. I think I got to give him a call again, or maybe email because he's in the UK.
Got it.
I look at foreign returns in common practice, and it's surprising what other countries require to be reported. I remember I looked at a Brazilian return, and they have to list all their assets.
Like as in everything.
They have a balance sheet that
Really?
they list. Yeah. So even I remember, if I recall correctly, there was a phone line that was listed.
Really?
Because that phone line was worth something.
Wow.
Yeah. So here in the U.S., we do have reporting requirements, but it's not uncommon for other countries to do the same or have been doing the same. Your bank accounts are disclosed.
Yeah.
The value of your accounts are disclosed. The value of your retirement accounts are disclosed. And we just don't have that in the U.S. for personal assets that are held here.
Right. So we're kind of pulling into the station here. So what would be kind of the last, biggest bit of advice you'd give to someone who is not a citizen in terms of what would you be telling them when they first come to you and say, okay, I want to buy a commercial building in Van Nuys?
Well, before you start looking at property, I would definitely go talk to a CPA or a tax attorney who knows the area, who understands what they're talking about. Because there are elections that need to be made on time. There are forms that need to be completed.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you're doing it correctly and taking the best avenue to forego paying taxes or withholding at a 30% rate. You also want to consider what you're going to do with the property, what your concerns are with regards to privacy, how you want to hold that property. For liability purposes, do you want to hold it in your personal name? Do you want to put it in a corporation or an LLC? What makes sense for you before you even go down that avenue and waste your time looking at property and then
my turn. Yeah. My time's important.
Yeah, and then go, you know what? This isn't worth it. I don't want to.
I don't want to bother Tom.
Yeah, I don't want to deal with all this U.S. reporting. Tom, take me back. So that's the biggest advice I would give. Start early. Start planning. Look at what you have to do. And the process, once you know what you're doing and you have the right professionals in place, it's fairly quickly and easy to go through and file the important papers.
Got it. Well, Ani, why don't you give us your contact info of your new office?
Yes. So if you want to reach me, you can email me at ani@galyanlaw.com, or you could call our offices at 818-964-0555.
Awesome. Ani, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. I had such a great time.
Good.
Maybe you'll have me up for
We'd love to have you back. Absolutely.
Updates next year.
Absolutely. Well, that's about it for today. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them for us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Clarified Realty Podcast, all one word. If you have any questions about real estate or you're just looking for someone to help you buy or sell a home, remember, I'm actually a licensed real estate agent. I'd love to help you out. So please email me directly at tom@clarifiedrealty.com or give me a call at 818-335-7662. Come on, guys, don't be shy. Give me a ring. For more exclusive bonus content and advice between episodes, please check out our website, www.clarifiedrealty.com. Also on our homepage, you'll find links to helpful buyer and seller guides that can give you some really great information for starting your home buying or home seller process. So definitely check those out. Here's a thing we're really proud of. We actually have a top-ranked Alexa skill. If you search the Alexa skill store for real estate, we are like number 6 or 7. Did you hear about that, Ron?
Yeah, I heard about that. That's
Holy
awesome.
Cow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So search the Alexa store for the Clarified Realty Podcast, add our skill, enable it to your daily briefing, and get a dose of real estate news and tips every day of the year. Definitely give it a try. It's pretty cool. I'm on Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram as well. My handle for all 3 of those are @Clarified Realty. Please leave feedback and reviews on iTunes or in the comment section on our page. Together we're stronger, folks. If you have any questions or ways that we can make this podcast better, come on, guys, I want to hear from you. My amazing theme song, Hey Now, is from the band Wolf. That's Wolf with 2 Fs, and please go check them out and like them on SoundCloud. And just a little fine print here, my brokerage is Keller Williams in Encino, Sherman Oaks. I'm licensed by the California Bureau of Real Estate, and my license number is 01715353. Ron's is
Guaranteed rate, NMLS 2611, NMLS ID 558706, California and Texas.
The advice we give is only for properties located in the state of California. For all other states, please contact your local real estate agent or real estate professional. That's about it, Ron. You all good?
Yeah, let's go buy some property.
I want to go buy some property, some foreign lands.
Yes.
All right, thanks for coming by, everybody. Remember, the greatest thing you can ever do is make someone feel at home. Take care. We'll see you next week.
What you gonna do with your life?